even the ones that tasted like habanero lasagna. They were three people from different worlds, brought together by a fluke of fate, a used car salesman's debt, and a very strict landlord. But as they sat together on the couch, watching the flickering screen of their small television, they knew they had found something special. Santa Monica was full of freaks and weirdos, as Stanley liked to say. But in apartment 201, they had found the only thing that really mattered, a place to belong. Epilogue: the door is always open. The sun rose again over Santa Monica, starting a new day of drowsy window shadows and dust motes. Stanley Roper sat in his recliner. Helen filed her nails in the bedroom, and upstairs, the sound of a falling whisk signaled that Jack Tripper was awake and probably burning something. Life was a ball again. Laughter was calling. And down at their rendezvous, they knew that as long as they had their lovable space, they would always be Three's Company. Come and knock on our door. We've been waiting for you. The Rendezvous at Apartment 201. A novel adaptation of Three's Company. Chapter 1. The Guardian of 101. The Santa Monica sun hung low over the Pacific, casting long, amber shadows across the stucco facade of the apartment complex. On the ground floor, in apartment 101, Stanley Roper was a man possessed by a single, agonizing mission, the preservation of his niece's virtue. He paced the worn linoleum of his living room, his brow furrowed in a permanent expression of suspicion. To Stanley, the world outside his door was a battlefield, and his apartment was the last outpost of decency. "Be quiet, Helen. You're going to wake Karen," Stanley hissed, his voice a strained whisper that carried the weight of a state secret. He stopped to adjust a framed photograph from his army days, his fingers trembling slightly with nervous energy. Helen Roper, draped in a floral muumuu that looked like a botanical garden, had exploded over a bolt of silk, didn't even look up from her fingernails. The rhythmic scritch-scritch of her file was the only sound in the room. "Filing my nails is going to wake up your knees. Stanley, it's not the filing that's the problem. It's the breaking. Every time you snap a nail, you swear loud enough to wake the residents of the nearby cemetery. Oh, so that's what got you up." Stanley ignored the jab, his mind preoccupied with the arrival of Karen from New York. To him, New York was a den of iniquity, a concrete jungle where every shadow hid a threat. He was convinced that Los Angeles, despite its sunny palm trees and golden beaches, was merely a more deceptive version of the same hellscape, crawling with freaks, weirdos, and perverts. "She's adjusting, Helen. She's got jet lag," Stanley insisted, stopping his pacing to gesture wildly toward the guest room door. "She flew in from a different time zone. She needs her rest." "Heard of it. I married it," Helen retorted, her voice dry. Her eyes, perpetually framed by a look of weary amusement, fixed on her husband. You've got her locked up like she's in a convent. You're more like her jailer than her uncle. The poor girl is 21. Stanley, she should be out having some fun with people her own age. She ought to be out dating." Stanley scoffed, the word dating hitting him like a physical blow. "Dating? In this city? I promised my brother I'd take good care of her. I've done everything a good uncle should. I took her to Disneyland. I took her to the museum. I even walked out to the end of the pier with her. And every night, I sit her down and tell her about my experiences in the war. You call that boring?" "Ellen, Ellen," Helen called out to an imaginary listener, then sighed. "Stanley, I must have drifted off just hearing you mention those war stories. She's bored. She's 21, and she's spending her nights listening to stories about trenches and K-rations." "She's safe," Stanley muttered, his chin setting in a stubborn line. "She's miserable," Helen countered. "Why don't you let her meet the kids upstairs? They're young, they're lively, and Jack. Well, Jack is harmless." Stanley stopped mid-stride. "The Andrews sisters. You mean Patty, Maxine, and Tinkerbell." He referred to the unconventional trio in apartment 201 with a mixture of confusion and contempt. He particularly enjoyed mocking Jack Tripper, a man who lived with two beautiful women and, according to the elaborate lie Jack told to stay in the building, had absolutely no romantic interest in them. To Stanley, Jack was a puzzle he hadn't quite solved, but one he found inherently non-threatening. "Safe," Stanley repeated, a devious glint appearing in his eyes. "Yeah, Jack is as safe as sending her out in an armored truck. For once in your life, Helen, you got a smart idea. When she gets up, I'm going to go talk to Jack about taking her out. It'll give us some peace and quiet, and I won't have to worry about any funny business." Chapter 2: The Half-Price Birthday. Upstairs in apartment 201, the atmosphere was considerably lighter, though no less chaotic. The kitchen was filled with the scents of a home-cooked meal, a rare treat in a household where the budget was often stretched thin. Jack Tripper was hunched over the kitchen counter, his focus absolute as he performed delicate surgery on a cake with a butter knife. "Where's the birthday girl?" Jack whispered as Chrissy Snow entered the room, her blonde curls bouncing with every step. She was wearing her favorite apron, the one with the small sunflowers, and looked as bright as the morning. "She's in the kitchen keeping an eye on your birthday dinner," Chrissy replied, then blinked as she realized where she was standing. "Wait, you're the one in the kitchen. She's in the bedroom. Who's keeping an eye on her? Oh, you shouldn't sneak up on a man like that when he's working on a masterpiece." Jack leaned in, his eyes mischievous. "I was going to give you a big surprise birthday kiss, but the moment's ruined. I'll just have to save it for later. It's not my birthday until January, Jack," Chrissy giggled. "Why wait for the last minute? I'm a man who believes in forward planning," Jack joked. He turned his attention back to the cake. It was a slightly lopsided creation that bore the name